Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, welcome to Tuesday's edition. Sidelines, college football, basketball, baseball, blitz. They're all coming together right now. I mean, you've got basketball tournaments underway right now. The SoCon, Sun Belt already wrapped up as well. SEC tournament starts Wednesday in Nashville at Bridgestone Arena. That will be a big focus of our time. Mitch Davis will be up there for us covering it. One of our team members of Sidelines. He'll be there for every game, every day until the last second has ticked off the clock. So looking forward to getting his reports. Got a great report today. Great show. Dan Mathews, 680 The Fan in Atlanta, Southern Sports Today, executive producer of the Chuck Oliver Show, will join us in the first segment. Followed up quickly by Doug Dean coming on the AU Dose in Birmingham. Will check in with us. Top of hour number 2, Franz Beard, GatorBaitMedia.com. His daily thoughts, his one final pithy thought. You won't want to miss that. He has a lot to say. It's not just about the Gators. It's about the SEC and what's going on in the college football, basketball, baseball landscape. As Buddy Martin said on the show Saturday on the round table, Franz is out there along with the rest of the Gator Bait Media crew covering everything that they keep scoring. They do a great job putting out great content every day. Hopefully, Mark Hamm, a Rocky Top Tennessee Tailgate Report, can join us from Florida, where he's vacationing, and check in with us. But we're here every Monday through Saturday, folks. 2 hours every day, about 50 hours a month of content. Love to have you join IPTAM. I pay $10 a month. Go to the sidelines.live website, tap on the orange Patreon button. And when you do, it is so easy. I did it. My dad does it. Lots of people. We welcome you to do it. That is the Patreon. That is what keeps us going, keeps the lights on. And we are growing this show. We're 19 months into the 6-day-a-week format. A lot of listeners, a lot more to come. We appreciate every one of you and our great sponsors. Like yesterday, I was out at Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee. They got the new shirts in, folks. They're cool. Old South apparel. And they've got the Bigfoot shirt. It's awesome. I bought it yesterday. Bigfoot is wearing a pair of sunglasses. You got to get it. Tons of duck heads, all vintage boots, 50% off. They've got a massive boot room out there on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee. Raven, Aaron was there. Charles Hall, his wife Laura, the owner. Can't find better people. Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company. Go to hewlettanddunn.com. Ask them, tell them what you're looking for. They ship everywhere and anywhere. Took 2 of my kids, Hallie and Max, out there, and Audrey and I had a blast out there. And we're going to cover a lot, but I'm going to tell you something. I got something interesting from a conversation that we had yesterday with John Hattler, play-by-play voice of UT Martin. And he sent me something this morning. He said, hey, at the UT Martin Athletic Club meeting, the NCAA has mandated that all baseball, softball, interior walls, fencing has to be padded. All right, that's interesting because look, and I'm going to ask Dan Mathews this question. He may know it. He's in that Atlanta traffic right now, going to be joining us momentarily. But you go full speed into the wall, you better hope it's padded. I think we all remember some of the great highlights of baseball players running at full speed, climbing the wall. Vincent Jackson, that comes to mind. But you go in there at full speed, and your shoulders, that could be a career killer. Think about that. Big one. Mike Brennan letting us know already he's whipping Junior's rear end on the tennis court this morning. Brennan, one of our loyal listeners, and Hey, lessons will be learned, Michael. I try to teach those to my kids every day. I think everybody does. But anyway, I want to say this. You go to the sidelines.live website. If you miss us live, sync the show on your favorite device. If you miss us, hey, just go to the website, sidelines.live, after the show. It's easy. You can hear it from anywhere, or 680thefan.com, the podcast park, radio stations like Sports Radio 104.7 FM in Cookeville, Tennessee, Kicks 96.3 Alexander City, Lake Martin. Dan Mathews in Atlanta. Dan, welcome to Sidelines. And just not a whole lot going on, just conference tournaments in basketball, college baseball kicking off, spring training. Frank Duffy was on with us yesterday on his way back to Tiger Town. Spring practice and football is underway, but other than that, not much to talk about. So I'll let you take it whatever direction you want to go, because you're a pro and we love hearing from you.
Oh, well, it's great to hear from you again as well. A little bit, excuse me, from, being out of town for the last week and a half. In a way, it's nice to be away this time of the year and be able to
Was competitive between those two teams. Then you've got a lot of other teams behind them with 5 losses. So, Dan, I'd like to get your.
You broke up there, Rob. I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Okay. No, just talking about the SEC basketball tournament. Alabama, the regular season favorite, and A&M at 15-3 right there at number 2. Then a bunch of teams log jammed behind them, but the team that seems like they're really surging of late is Kentucky.
Yeah, this is something that has been a little bit of a problem for John Calipari's teams the last few years, is really being able to find March consistency. And, he's been the king of the one and dones for a while. And I think that's probably called into question now a little bit of, how good can you be with a team full of guys that only get a handful of months to be able to gel together? Who wins in March? It's the teams that have veteran presence. It's the teams that have seniors and juniors in key positions. Now, are they necessarily going to be NBA prospects? Probably not. But, you don't need that in order to be able to hold up the trophy at the end of the year. But you're right. Oscar Schwebe, and this Kentucky team seemed like, at least there was a part of the season where people kind of were looking at them like we are right now with North Carolina. You want to talk about a disappointing team this year. That team looked like they were loaded for bear, and that they just needed to be able to recapture the magic they had last year. Now, probably aside from, a strong finish in the ACC tournament, we're not going to see the Tar Heels in the NCAA tournament. And that's where I think people thought that Kentucky was going to be. But I think a team, too, that I'm looking at is Buzz Williams' Texas A&M team had a lot of really good finishes towards the end of the season. And when you're playing well this time of the year, that carries. I wouldn't be surprised if Texas A&M has a really strong week in Nashville, and we'll see if they're able to carry that over into the field of 68.
Sure. And you mentioned about Carolina and Duke this year. Granted, Coach K's gone, second year for Hubert Davis. They started off really slow last year, finished strong. Not really the case this year. But another question I have for you, do you think it bodes well for Alabama to win the regular season and then do really well? Do they have to do well to hold on to a number one seed in the SEC tournament for the NCAA March Madness?
I mean, I think aside from when's their first game, I think it's Thursday. I think aside from losing on Thursday, they're probably a number one seed. I mean, just the way they played this season. I know they had the tough loss on the road last week to Texas A&M. I mean, kind of feeds into what I was just talking about with Buzz Williams' team and how well they're playing right now. But, you know, I think that Nate Oates has put together a really good resume this year. And this team is a team that's scrappy. They fight. Now, are they the most easy to root for if you're not an Alabama fan? Probably not. I mean, you know, I think that, you know, there were a lot of people who were pretty upset about the handling of the Brandon Miller situation. You know, and my whole thing with it all was, look, if he wasn't charged with the crime and he wasn't found to have done any wrongdoing, I don't understand how you suspend that guy. You know, and I was, I guess, in the minority on that in some cases, but you know, it's a situation where if the legal arm of this did not decide that he, you know, contributed in the manner that a lot of people thought he did, then he deserves to still be on the floor. Now, the pat down on the lineup introductions, I thought that was, yeah, I mean, that just, again, you know, where people just say that's not an easy team to root for. That's just incredibly dumb to do something like that after what just happened. I mean, that's just, you know, I've been a defender of letting Brandon Miller play, but I think right there that should have been Nate Oates saying you're done at least for the rest of the regular season after that. Like I've got to send some sort of message, and that's ridiculously dumb. So I mean, you know, they're a good team. I just, you know, I also worry about teams, you know, peaking too early, and you know, and that's what I kind of would worry about with Alabama too.
Yeah, and I'm with you, but also I've never bought into, hey, just who cares if you win or lose? You get more rest for the NCAA tournament. That doesn't work. I mean, you know, I remember Auburn last year got clocked by A&M early, went to the NCAA tournament and went out in the second round, losing by 20 to a 4-guard starting lineup led Miami team, which, hey, they won the ACC this year. What do you think about Jim Larrañaga? Is he about as below the radar as Buzz Williams at A&M is? I don't know why some coaches the media they put them over in a separate category, but both of those guys, in my opinion, are great coaches.
It's age. I mean, let's just call it what it is. I mean, if he were probably, you know, 45, you know, 40 years old, something like that, then you're probably hearing about him for, you know, the upper tier jobs out there. I mean, Texas is open. They're going to be looking for a top tier guy at the end of this season. You know, you probably would hear his name, and maybe you still will. I don't know. But I mean, that's probably it. I mean, you know, he's been nothing but consistent, really, during his time at Miami. And you know, I know that they've had some down years there in Coral Gables, but, you know, he also was able to lead the charge this year along with Jeff Capel and Pitt in terms of being able to kind of help raise the profile of the ACC because, I mean, Virginia had a really good season. Duke had probably by their standards a good season, not great, maybe even a slightly good because for whatever reason, you know, the top 25 pollsters for a lot of the time did not have them ranked, but, you know, they're a 23-8 team. I mean, you know, I think that's a pretty strong season for John Shire in his first year there at Duke. But, you know, that's probably the biggest thing. I mean, you know, coaching is pretty much across the board now, mostly in football, but now in basketball as well, proven to be a young man's game. And you know, it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of commitment. It takes a lot of, you know, just paying attention to things that in the past as a coach, you didn't have to worry about. And I'm not saying that Jim Larrañaga can't do that. I think that now across the board in the professional ranks and in college, they prefer to go with the younger voice and somebody that, especially in this ever-changing landscape that is college athletics, that can be able to navigate the problems, or not the problems, but the new things that you have to concern yourself with in college sports.
Yeah, and I think we're already starting to see NIL prove to be what it is. You're going to see some athletes make money very similar to the Olympics. You'll have a handful that make a lot of money, a few that might drive a truck from a local car dealership. But I don't think – I've been looking into this NIL and at a lot of places. There are not that many players getting much money. And the players that did, it backfired. At Miami was giving it out like Halloween candy, and so was A&M. But A&M, I think that was a lot of other problems. But the kids thought, hey, I show up from day one and I get a pile of money. Doesn't work that way.
Oh, it shouldn't. I mean, I think that you're right. I think that the first season that was, I guess that was the 2021 season was the first one.
Yes.
Where we saw a lot of serious money being handed out. You're right. I think that probably businesses more than any other learned, all right, the measured, slower approach is the way to go here. And I think the measured, slower approach is allow for a Joe Burrow to happen. I think that's one. I mean, every single year in college football, we seem to have somebody like a Joe Burrow. I mean, last year, I think probably you could say that either Max Duggan or Stetson Bennett fit that mold of guys that are able to continue to add to their celebrity and grow and flourish a brand. I mean, I think that's the other part of it as well, is the lesson you try to teach these kids is, hey, just because you think you're a pretty good ball player doesn't mean that people want to buy from you. And I think that's a lesson to be learned. And I think these companies also too finally said, hey, look, let's go get back to what made us who we are.
Yeah.
And let's build off a brand as opposed to trying to create a brand.
Yeah, I agree with you. Dan, I know you've got a tight schedule. Let people know how they can follow you. And as always, we appreciate you coming on Sidelines. We love it. You and the Chuck Oliver Show.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. It's great to talk with you again. It's been a while, and hopefully next time we can get into a little bit of college baseball. LSU has been crushing it right now.
Yeah,
literally.
We're going to. Don't worry.
Oh, God bless you, man. You're the man. Follow me on Twitter, at Dan Mathews, ATL. Also, to the Chuck Oliver Show, Southern Sports Today app. That's how you can follow us. Chuck Oliver Show. At Chuck Oliver Show on Twitter is how you can follow us. Dave Bartu, his normal Tuesday visit with us. That is Aces, if you have not listened to it. College Football Matrix. Taylor Gaspar Estes from Horns 247 as Texas started their spring practice yesterday. And Arch Manning threw some routes on air, and the crowd went wild. We'll talk him and much more. And then Jeff Cameron from the Jeff Cameron Show down in Tallahassee does a great job covering Florida State as the Noles also got started yesterday. There's a lot of promise for Mike Norvell's team this year. So we'll talk all that and much more on today's show.
All right, great stuff. I'll be listening. Dan Mathews with us in Atlanta. We'll be right back after this quick break with Doug Dean, AU Dose in Birmingham. Thank you.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne back with you. Doug Dean joining us momentarily. Dan Mathews is right. I mean, you got to think about that. 680 The Fan in Atlanta, doing the Chuck Oliver show, 11 a.m. Eastern to 1 p.m. Monday through Friday, right after our show. And then again in the afternoon, Chuck and Chernoff, Dan, the executive producer. They're located, I think it's 53 feet, their office right there in the Battery in Atlanta, up in Cobb County, from the front entrance to Truist Park, home of the Atlanta Braves. You talk about location. What a great place. And now, Rocky Top Tennessee Tailgate Report, Mark Hamm up in Knoxville. His son, Will, who is a junior at Tennessee, was found out yesterday he's going to be working for the Braves this summer. Somebody's got to do it. Go to all the Braves games and get to learn a lot. And one of the great venues in all of sports is the Battery. The people that put that together, Billy Roberts, who I call a Bravesologist, like Frank Duffy as well, Dan Mathews, all these guys will tell you it's a great source of revenue. All the bars and restaurants, they're packed during Braves games. And quite honestly, you could say there are as many people outside the stadium as there are inside the stadium. It's an atmosphere like you see on a college football campus on game day in the South. People inside, but outside, 40, 50,000 people tailgating, having a great time. That is the Battery up in Atlanta. Hey, listeners, great folks that are out there tuning in, like Trent Reeves, our friend over at the Crazy Donkey food truck, man. Some of the best Mexican food I've ever put in my mouth over in Wynn, Arkansas on Falls Boulevard. I mean, they're there every Monday through Saturday, about 11 a.m. in the morning till 7 at night. Get the Domino Burrito, Casa Burrilla. It's unbelievable. Their cheese dip just is off the charts. But Trent Reeves, great man from Palestine, Arkansas, Palestine, however you want to pronounce it. So Palestine, Razorback Hog for Life, HFL. Listen, I'm getting hungry talking about him. Although I did have some of the food last night for dinner left over and some of that great cheese dip this morning. But God, what a great time of year. You've got in the air. I mean, it's going to be up and through late April, early May. You'll have these 75, 80 degree days, and then you got the 53 degrees with a 30-mile-an-hour wind. It's back and forth, but you've got college basketball tournaments underway everywhere you look. Baseball, college baseball, spring training for the majors underway, college football, spring practice, the combine, all that stuff going on up in Indianapolis. And, you know, what's funny to me is guys get up there to the combine. Why is it a surprise to people when Stetson Bennett shows up in Indianapolis that he's right up there with Bryce Young and everybody else? Look, but y'all know how I feel about Bryce Young. I think he's one of the best players in college football. Might be the best player ever at Alabama not to win a national championship. He played for it, but, hey, he didn't get it. But Stetson Bennett, look at this guy's resume, in case I need to remind people who have been living underground in a cave, or basically they're living brain donors. Back-to-back national champions, okay? Who other than Buck Bellew to give him praise about what he did at the combine? His speed, the speed on the ball, his time in the 40, all the different tests, okay? All the guy does is win. And I don't know why so many people out there I'll tell you why. Because they've got it in their heads what a great quarterback is supposed to look like and all. Well, they just measured Bryce Young at the combine. He's not 6'1", he's not 6'2", he's 5'10" and an eighth. Same height as Stetson Bennett. And their measurables and everything like that about the same. Somebody tell me why nobody's projecting Stetson Bennett as a first-round pick. Well, he's not mentioned, but we hear about Will Levis, Why? Because he eats bananas with the skin on them, and he puts a big spoonful of mayonnaise in his coffee. That's going to make me sick. Stetson Bennett probably won't be taken in the first 5 or 10 picks. Maybe not even in the first round. But I'll be willing to bet anybody out there, whatever team, if he gets on the right team, that's going to be important. This guy's going to win in the NFL. And the combine, that's when, as Warren Buffett says, when the stock market, when we go into a bear market or a correction in the stock market, Warren Buffett has famously said many times, that's when we find out who's been swimming naked. Well, what the combine does is it exposes people for what they are or what they aren't. Everybody, we all know this. College football, the media guides, they list everybody a little taller and a little bigger in a lot of cases, most cases, than what they really are. They get to the combine, barefooted in your boxers. That's when they tell all. Okay. You can't say, you're 6'4" if you're only 6'2" or 6'1". And a lot of guys, when they start their college careers, especially the center position, I think they shrink. I mean, who's the greatest center of all time in college football? Probably has to be Dave Remington at Nebraska. I saw him play in person a few times. He's the greatest center. He was maybe 5'11", but I think he could bench press 2,000 pounds. Another guy who can bench press 2,000 pounds with one arm, Doug Dean, AU Dose, Birmingham. Doug, I was just pontificating and just kind of railing about Stetson Bennett gets to the combine. Compare him with Bryce Young, the measurables and everything. What's not to like? If you were blindfolded or you just didn't know and you hadn't listened to the narratives for the last few years, Stetson's no good. He's this, that. Bryce is a great player, but now I got to hear about it. But let me trump that by saying Anthony Richardson. We're hearing more about him, and people trying to say he's a better passer than Cam Newton. Let me just say this. Over my shoulder, you see my good friend Tom, don't you, Doug?
Yeah.
Tom is a 22-pound Eastern Turkey with a 10-inch beard, wearing an Irish derby in early celebration of St. Patrick's Day. But I'm just going to ask you this before I let you go. Based on what you've seen in the combine from Stetson Bennett and Bryce Young, what's the difference in the two quarterbacks? I can tell you two things right off the bat.
Well, I want to hear your two. Go ahead.
2 national championship rings on Stetson Bennett's right hand and none on Bryce Young's. I mean, Bryce Young's a great player, but you know what? They're both 5'10". I'm just saying, I think they both are going to be excellent quarterbacks in the NFL.
Well, you put me in a good morning to you and Audrey and all your listeners, and here we are talking. There's so many distractions. We're supposed to be talking March Madness, SEC tourney, which we'll get to. We can talk NFL draft, which I will be really outmatched on trying to pose as a draft expert. But and then obviously spring ball underway for most of the teams we all pull for. But back to your question. The NFL draft gurus who have absolutely their share of blunders over the years, if you just stick to the QB position, the poster child for blown evaluation obviously turned out to be the GOAT, Tom Brady. So, I think they should have some humility, but what you find out is they really, a lot of years, most years really, they seem to really overvalue, or I should say value. Each person can decide, are you overvaluing the measurables like height, 40 speed? I was blown away. Did you see Owen Papo's metrics? I mean, he's faster than any safety so far, if you believe the digital timing or however they're timing it. But in terms of the Stetson Bennett, I don't want to anger the Georgia fans. I think most of them that are reasonable can have a gentleman's or gentle ladies, friendly debate over Bryce Young and the vision that kid has, the escapability. I think he was asked to do more by this Nick Saban, the last year's offense in kind of impossible situations, whereas Bennett did what he was asked. That's all you can ask him to do. And he's absolutely delivered in the clutch multiple times in big games. The only kind of poor game that I recall him having, arguably, was 2 years ago when Alabama just ambushed them, and Bennett was forced into a situation of having to throw more, and he threw a pick six. But here's the way I see Stetson Bennett. He needs to probably rid himself of the notion that he would be a franchise QB. He might prove me wrong on that, but I'll tell you what he can do and have a long career. The way quarterbacks get dinged up, Rob, and injured, and boy, I probably will anger some Georgia fans when I say this, but if he got on the right team and hold a clipboard for a few years, I would love to have him as my insurance policy in a big game, because he can run the offense, he can make big throws, but he's probably not going to be that guy that if you ask him to throw it 40 or 50 times in an NFL game that he can hold up and win it. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, and everything you said, I agree with, especially the escapability part of Bryce Young. He is Houdini. I mean, that's the thing. He can win the game for you, whereas you're saying, and I think there's a lot of truth in that. Stetson Bennett didn't really have to as much, but in the Ohio State game, he did. That fourth quarter, but I say escapability. Bryce Young, I give him the edge there.
That, and man, he's just what a lot of the analysts call, and I really like this term, he can throw a wide receiver open. He puts they get the ball usually. I mean, you can cause him problems. We've seen that in some big games, but he has, for his diminutive height, which is the big question. I think a lot of the draft experts and teams are having to weigh. You would think Kyler Murray resolved that question. Do you have to be 6'3" to play in the NFL? It's nice if you are, but he finds those lanes to throw, and I think somebody's going to take a chance on him. And if he can stay healthy, unlike what you've seen Tua go through at Miami, that's always the wild card. Do you have an offensive line that can keep you standing upright? But I would not bet against Bryce Young having a brilliant NFL career.
Oh, I'm not either, and I totally agree with you. I think they're both they both won a lot, and they're going to make sure everybody around them is doing what they're supposed to do. They'll hold people accountable. Doug, already getting questions from people now that you're on, and they're saying March Madness. You're right. I agree with everybody. Let's talk, man, because your dose. They're just it's great. It's great reading, and again, all these seasons are coming together. It's just a great time of the year.
It is indeed. I have, I'm probably more of as in the last 15 years, I'm kind of late to the March Madness party. I like everyone else, I always participated in the office bracket and bracketology and pool, legal gambling at work. What's not to like about that? Said the HR guy. But this year, Bruce arrived in town and cleaned up the mess that a lot of us used to call Auburn Arena, and before that, Beard Eves, that it had been built on a Native American burial ground. That's how bad our luck was. And Bruce came and, apparently exorcised those demons or made amends with the Native American nation or whatever happened. So, man, it makes that bridge from football season to hunting season, and before you get to Lake Martin season, it's a beautiful thing when your team makes March Madness. And so I was having a little fun last night. The great Joe Lenardi. Hey, you talking to me, Joe?
Yeah. Panache. Come on.
You want a piece of me, Lenardi? So he's got, and all of this will be wrong because there's so many moving parts on the brackets that will be announced this Sunday night after the conference tournaments. But I can't help but find his initial bracket last night. He's got, and I'm sorry, I'm sticking to Auburn here for grins, but he's got Auburn a 9 seed, which as we sit, is probably about right. They have a very good resume, but not a 6 or 7 seed resume. They needed to win a few more of those quad 2 and quad 1 games, but he's got them out in Sacramento, Rob. I can live with that. We would, according to Lenardi, first face Florida Atlantic, prayers lifted for Florida Atlantic. Although anything can happen, there would be an 8 seed. If you win that one, you'll be facing the blue blood UCLA Bruins, who look very good. But here's where it gets delicious. Suppose this Auburn team, and you can't say it's impossible after last Wednesday night in Tuscaloosa, taking a team like Bama to overtime, we would then face very likely Virginia after UCLA if you could pull the shocker on a 1 seed. And there's more than a few Auburn fans that would love another shot at that lying, cheating Virginia Cavaliers and their double dribbling team.
I still have nightmares. I still think about that, the ending of that game. It doesn't live in my head, but when you bring it up,
it lives
I think how close. You don't have that many times you get a national championship and you get that close, and to have a referee determine. But again, I go back every time. We're about to take a break, but for the first 5 minutes of the second half, Auburn couldn't buy a basket. If Auburn gets a few baskets, it doesn't come down to that, but it did. And that is frustrating. And everybody knows how that game ended, and we'll talk about it more right after this quick commercial break.
You bet.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
I want to say something about one of our sponsors, rumbleboxinggym.com/Midtown Memphis, and Camp Lee opening 3 of these gyms in the Memphis area. This first one should open up in early to mid-April. Union and McLean in Midtown. Big, huge studio in a brand new building. Hey, here's the layout. 25 benches on one side. In the middle, group training, 45-minute grueling boxing workouts. On the right side, 25 punching bags. Go to the website, check it out. Join now, discounted rates. We're going to be doing some live shows from rumbleboxinggym.com here soon so we can show you what it looks like. But I'm telling you, it's a great way to get a workout, get out a lot of aggression. And those of us that are sports fans, think about whoever you want to. Some, bad call here and there. There's your punching bag. rumbleboxinggym.com. Doug, before we went to the break, you were really making great points about what could happen in the tournament. you just want to get there. But the significance of that 20th win Saturday for Auburn against Tennessee at the Neville Arena, and I heard Dan Bongino talking about it.
Wow.
He went with his wife and his daughters and said, "Holy cow, the Auburn students tore the place apart." He goes, not literally, but figuratively. And
Hold
he
on.
just was so impressed by that.
Does Bongino have a child there or something?
I don't know, but I think he was there. Actually, somebody sent me a picture back in the fall of him. Maybe it was the Penn State game or LSU game, or Arkansas, one of them, and he was on campus. I don't know if he does or not, but
I'll find out. But going back to my scenario, that mine, Lenardi is, the way he gets clickbait is, or throws bait out there, is to continually project a bracket, and he's honestly, his history of being reliable on the brackets is spotty at best, but he's fun. And I was thinking, if Auburn did go to that West region and was in Sacramento, and if you can win game one, you almost certainly face the Bruins at Blue Blood. Can you imagine? We would have to have Charles Barkley and the great Bill Walton in studio together, pregame, halftime, and postgame for that one, and I that would be worth the price of admission. Am I right?
There's no doubt about that one, and the two of those guys together, that would be must-watch TV. I'm a big Bill Walton fan. Always have. I love that guy. He just reminds me of just what I grew up watching in basketball.
But here's the thing: UCLA is going to be a 1 seed. They're one of the teams you'd have. They're going to be a lot of people's national champion. I lean toward the Jayhawks Rock Chalk right now because kind of my second favorite team, and they had a rough outing with Texas, but that was in a tough environment in Austin. But UCLA almost certainly will get sent to Sacramento, would be my guess, just like the Crimson Tide almost certainly gets to come to the friendly confines of Birmingham, Alabama. How cool is it that we're going to have first two rounds of March Madness here in the Magic City, Rob?
Well, look, that city, when it comes to hosting big-time events, has few, if any, equals. I love it. I mean, it's 3 hours and 20 minutes from Memphis. I'm coming down there if I can pull it off. It is, look, Legacy Arena, downtown Birmingham, the whole complex there. They do it right because they're all committed to Birmingham. I think it's awesome.
Well, oddly enough, since even though I'm a homer with the city I live in, I'm going to only disagree with you a little in the interest of objectivity. We have no illusions in Birmingham that we are on the same plane or stage as your international cities like Dallas, Atlanta, Nashville. Certainly Nashville's an unbelievable venue to host just about anything. But what I think the people, and it's certainly going to be loaded with crimson and white, but those who do travel and come to Birmingham, what they're going to experience, if they're not familiar with it, is just a lot of friendliness and hospitality, and you can have fun aside from the games themselves. And I agree with you that Legacy Arena is greatly improved. So I don't think we will. I think we'll do ourselves proud, and a lot of people are working hard to make exactly that happen.
Well, look, I mean, every time I'm there with you or Maury Gaston, go downtown to the fish market. Look, let's face it, the Greeks own the restaurant business in Birmingham down to the Gulf Coast from Birmingham south. And there's so many great restaurants there. Doug, I know you don't work for the Chamber of Commerce, but you might as well, because I love that city. I've got so many friends there. We got a ton of our listeners there. But, we got people listening. We got like 41,000 listeners, uniques on the website now. So we're very blessed. Tell them about, hey, they're coming to Birmingham. A couple of things they may not be thinking about that would be great because you're going to know it. You're a native.
Well, absolutely. The food and wine scene is talked about far and wide. And for those coming, I'll limit myself right now to the a little finer dining. But my short list, I hope I don't offend just a lot of great dining, lunch and dinner establishments. But if you want a nice button down, sport coat kind of dinner that's quiet and just great ambiance, great table fare, my short list would include Automatic Seafood. This is award-winning Adam Evans, an Auburn guy, by the way. Obviously, you got to put Frank Stitt on the table at Bottega Restaurant. I don't think he's reopened the legendary Highland Bar and Grill. Maybe he has. Easy enough to find out. You'd have to look at Hot and Hot Seafood, award-winning as well there. And so when you get to town, those are three on your short list. And then if you're just looking for a sports bar, that uptown area will be a good choice. And the 5 Points South area, great options for entertainment in and around the games. And by the way, Rob, if you need confirmation that the SEC basketball gods are unkind to Bruce Pearl this year, we draw Thursday night Arkansas, a very talented Arkansas team with Nick Smith. If you can find a way to eke out that win, your reward is playing Texas A&M, who just took down Alabama. Then your reward for that is likely Kentucky with those Big Blue fans packing Bridgestone Arena. And if that's not enough reward, you're likely then facing Alabama unless somehow they are knocked off prior to the Sunday event. So it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to just beat Arkansas, then, lose one to the Aggies, bow out, and get healed up for March Madness.
Well, I agree. And Kentucky's really coming on playing well lately. They won 5 of their last 6. And they went to Fayetteville last Saturday. And I was listening and watching Pat Bradley, the shooter. That's one of my favorites. 95-99, a Razorback from Boston.
He's great.
Lives in Little Rock. But he talked about, hey, Arkansas, come on. Razorbacks were only 2 of 20 on the layups. You got to do better than that. I'm not great with math, but I can figure that out. That's 10%. But it's a Razorback team, Doug, that plays 4 freshmen. Nick Smith Jr. came on late. He hadn't been there all season. But it's going to be a tough game because Eric Musselman is a tough guy coach. But I think Auburn, Arkansas is going to be it's a toss-up. I don't see Auburn beat them early in the season. But one thing about Bruce Pearl's teams, they'll play a full 40.
Yeah, wow, things that blow your mind. But in the more recent game, I think it's maybe the last several weeks, if you can believe it, Rob, the Auburn Tigers are the top 3-point shooting team in the entire SEC. And I believe it's the last 5 or 6 games. Obviously, they put those 12 threes up that gave themselves a chance to pull the shocker in Tuscaloosa. Didn't get the most help from even officiating. That's just my personal opinion, but others will see it differently. And honestly, I've seen refereeing be generally bad to everyone in the SEC all year long. It's just my big belief is that if you're going to call a certain way on one end of the court, call it on both ends of the court. Just the inconsistency. But so Auburn has continued to play, with the exception of that disaster in Rupp Arena, which is inexplicable. They're playing great defense. They're shooting well, and they only turned the ball over 6 times against Tennessee, which is the best defense in the country statistically. So, boy, if you're gonna get well in early March, not back in January.
Yeah, and I think if you look at Auburn last year when they got that number 1 ranking in early February a year ago, they kind of it peaked, and that's great to be number 1. You got to get used to it and not really think about it. But I do like 5 of the last 6 years, Auburn has won 20 or more games under Bruce Pearl.
Amazing.
Am I correct in saying that Auburn in the last 5 years has won more games than any other basketball team in the SEC?
That's correct. Yep.
That's a hell of a statement. That's a hell of a statement. And so, all right, Doug, I want to switch and ask you about spring practice right now down there with Hugh Freeze. And I know this sounds weird to say, but it's fun to watch Auburn football again. It's no longer like they're in, a gulag or something. And, with Stalag 17, they're having fun.
Yep.
And did you know they're offensive linemen now? They're looking to build a 2 deep and a 3 deep depth chart. If they hadn't have gone out and got the 8 or 9 guys in the portal in recruiting, I think 8 of those 9 guys are on campus now. Jason Caldwell told us the other day they would have only had 7. They wouldn't have been able to have a spring practice.
Yeah. Well, there's something, the format for A-Day you may have heard about. I'm going to talk about in a second, which I'm stoked about. That might even get me down to Auburn to watch. But
It will.
The O-line is, to me, well, you have to talk about quarterback evaluation with Ashford and Holden Garner. And I realize TJ Finley is in the mix, but I'm certain he's going to be shown the door or find the door on his own when spring ball is over. We've seen his body of work. I don't want to be unfair to any given player, but I think he's just one of those guys. You're going to like him in practice, but he had so many opportunities to show more capability, more composure in live when the live bullets are flying. So I'm bearish on TJ. And then you're going to probably see Hugh go into the portal after spring, May 1 to 15 window, and get a bona fide quarterback. Keep an eye on the kid at Georgia if he doesn't win the starting job, Vandegrift.
Yeah,
who was a 5-star. But besides the QB spotlight and maybe defensive line, the story is going to be, what does the starting 5 rotation look like on the offensive line? And as you said, they're going to have the guys coming in behind them are getting great coaching too. So realistically, no one is expecting an elite like Nate top 5 offensive line, but with the assets they've got at skill positions, if this offensive line is just slightly above average, this will be a significantly improved offense especially under this Montgomery and Hugh Freeze brain trust.
Yeah, and you know what, Doug, kind of got lost in the shuffle is some of the guys that had put their name in the portal prior to Hugh Freeze being named Auburn's head football coach. They stayed, Landon King, Zacchaeus Walker. That's a big deal to have that guy. He was the number 79 recruit in the country.
That's your best.
Now, yeah.
Oh, I didn't talk about the format, Rob. I mean, I absolutely love this. A-Days, notwithstanding that, you've seen Georgia and Alabama when they sign these number 1 recruiting classes and they've got such rabid fan bases, packed 90,000 plus in their stadiums for a meaningless spring scrimmage called A-Day or whatever they call it. But this year, I love what Freeze is talking about doing. Instead of the 1 orange team, 1 blue team, and they're constantly swapping players, and you really can't get the feel that it's a competitive game, so to speak. He's considering you show up for the game, and before kickoff, defense has 24 points on the board. So the task is you have to win the A-Day game, and I'm sure they'll have bone-in ribeyes for the winning team. They used to do that, and chopped liver for the losers. But the defense will have to hold the offense under 24 points for the game. I like that standard. These days, you get a great defense, you would take scoring defense 24 or less. You'd take it, wouldn't you, Rob?
Yeah. I mean, I think that is, Doug, that is a cool story. Just got this information from one of our listeners. He said, one spring, and Herb Winches and Phil Snow were the honorary coaches for the A-Day game. I think Snow's team won, but don't recall. I think that was Pat Dye's first or second year at Auburn. That was pretty cool. I mean, but I love that format, Doug. That'll get people. You know who I think's going to make the trip down there for that, don't you? Well, I think Herman and I are coming down to Auburn.
Mildred is invited to my tailgate, but she must stick to PG-rated stories.
Oh, yes, Doug, you are correct. Doug, we're going to go. We're going to go to a break in a second because I've got several questions. If you can take them from people that are listening that love hearing you when you're on here, and
Mark,
I got to say,
Alabama.
Which one?
Mark Twain from Opp, Alabama wrote you.
Yes, right. Mark Twain from Opp, Alabama. Yeah, but I think you got to do something to get people excited. I remember one year at A-Day at halftime, Bo Jackson challenged every kid that wanted to race him with a 100-yard dash or 50-yard dash to midfield, and he gave them all like a 10 or 20-yard head start, and it wasn't even close. Superman did his thing. All right, look, let's take a break. We got Doug Dean, AU Dose. Talk about Birmingham. I hope you listen. Those of you that are listening on the replay on the podcast, great food city. And don't forget Bricktop Seafood out on 280. Yum! Be right back. All right, and this is another funny one here. Talking about, spring games, Doug. You're right. A lot of times you'll see a high scoring. What do you learn from them? Well, if you do this, it's kind of like, giving all those kids a 15 or 20-yard head start to see what the offense can do. But it incentivizes the game, and it makes it's intriguing. There's a storyline. I think people will be interested in it. I remember April 7th of 2018 being down there. It was barely above freezing for the A-Day game. And the Ole Miss, the Grove Bowl in Oxford that weekend, they had sleet and snow. So, never know what you're going to get. But Doug, you mentioned a minute ago, and then I want you to go, Zacchaeus Walker, he's your highest rated recruit on the Auburn roster out of Elladale, Georgia. But he came back. There's something going on. There's an undercurrent of love of the orange and blue of this roster. I think people need to quit getting caught up in all that. These kids don't care anymore. They do. And the ladybugs are all over the house. So there's something good about to happen. I'm an optimist, man.
Oh, I'm glad I'm not the only one in the throes of the damn ladybug epidemic at my hunting club. Goodness gracious, you have to vacuum around the windows every time you go down. But I'll say this, Rob. It's amazing what you can do when you have a coach and a coaching staff who have affect. They connect with people, young people, other staffers. There's this contagious enthusiasm. There's realism, too, that, we're what Freeze walked into was a rebuild. There's no other way to put it. But we're not without some talent and some elite talent in positions like running back and possibly a couple of cornerbacks. I like the tight end room. So Auburn people can have fun with the rebuild. We can live with a few losses this coming year because we have a lot of faith in what the trajectory looks like right now. That I can prove wrong, because when you're playing in the SEC gauntlet, you can be great and still suffer 2 or 3 losses any given year. I was going to break a little bombshell that's not much. This is not confirmed, Rob, so I have to preface when it's rumor. I'm calling it exactly that. But a lot of buzz coming out of the loveliest village that Auburn is working to cut a deal with Nike and move away from the Under Armour contract. The problem with that contract is early on, it looked brilliant in its inception that a lot of the compensation was Under Armour stock. Well, if you've been watching, you do this for a living, Rob, you've been watching Under Armour stock recently. Auburn has been getting a pay cut, if you will, with that deal. And so Notre Dame remains the flagship program, and what a brand it is with Under Armour. But keep an ear to the ground for the swoosh making its way back to Lee County, Rob. And, when you think about it, when Bo Jackson was one, along with Michael Jordan and others, the flagship branding persona for Nike, it's just downright weird that Auburn would not be sporting that Nike swoosh.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm getting Under Armour. It was 2006. I remember the Auburn-Washington State game. I was down there for that. Franz Beard is with us right now, GatorBaitMedia.com, and I'll go to you in just a second, Franz. I was down there for that game, and my kids, they were, 10, 8, and 6, and we bought everything Under Armour we could find. They had 18-wheelers of Under Armour stuff outside on the streets by the bookstores to restock it. But I don't like their shoes. I'm not a fan of those shoes. And you're right. Nike, Bo Jackson, Wayne Gretzky, Michael Jordan. I just think about that. It would be really cool if Auburn would go back to Nike. And this just came in from one of our listeners, Joe Passantino in Parrish, Florida, a graduate of John Carroll High School in Birmingham. Might be moving back in, Linda. Might be moving back to Birmingham soon. We got 2 of their kids have already graduated from Auburn. But he said, is it true that Mildred is challenging all kids under 12 to a 50-yard dash sprint, and she'll give them a 25-yard head start at A-Day? Can you confirm or deny?
I'm betting on Mildred. I mean, she's
I am too.
She's
what? Do we have a birthday? If Mildred had a birthday lately, how old would she be now?
I think she's probably pushing 97. Sounds like on air.
I got you. Doug, look, I tell you what, bottom line, you got to do something to get the fans excited. And but stay on with us if you can. We'd love for you to, because
get out of the great Franz Beard. Is it Franz or
Franz?
Franz. Okay, so he pushed some great Gator basketball, Gator football coming up, and I look forward. Maybe we'll get to play Florida more often, Franz, with this realignment. You got any intel on that?
Well, we're going to play at least home and home at least every 4 years. But, one of the sad things in my life was when the Florida Auburn series was discontinued, because I had to tell you what, the most respectful fans back and forth were Auburn and Florida. Florida fans loved going to Auburn. Auburn fans loved coming to Florida. We all had a good time. We had parties and tailgates together. We looked forward to seeing old friends when we go up there, and vice versa. And they they just snatched that out of us. And it was a great rivalry. It really and truly was a great rivalry.
Yeah, it was.
And I'm just so sad when that discontinued. Urban Meyer, for example, never beat Auburn. People don't realize that, but Urban Meyer, 2 great teams, and couldn't beat Auburn. Up there in 2007, Auburn scores 27 points and doesn't get a single offensive touchdown to do it.
Yeah, Franz, thank you for the kind words about Auburn. I felt the same way about Gator fans, and that's just, I call that was a sexy rivalry. Nothing against some of our other annual rivals in SEC West, but to get to go to Gainesville and experience that electric environment, not a comfortable and cool environment in September or October, but the only thing I would say is it didn't feel much like a rivalry in Spurrier's heyday when he would lay 49 on you. Terry Bowden had a moment or two against the old ball coach.
Yep. Yeah. Beat him two. Other than Florida State, the only team that ever beat Spurrier consecutive years was Auburn, and Bobby Bowden did it a couple of times. But Spurrier beat Bobby more than most coaches did.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the thing I always loved was we could have so much fun with Auburn fans, and we could yell at each other and scream during the games, and after the games we were still friends. And there wasn't a whole lot of woofing going on, but there was a lot of pride in each school. And I mean, I have one of my business partners is an Auburn grad and former head of the Auburn National Alumni Association at one point in time. So I have an affinity for Auburn. And I got to tell you one other thing. The best stadium in the Southeastern Conference to watch a football game is Jordan-Hare. No doubt about it. It is the best. Great sight lines. They haven't made the seats so that, if some people make seats so that if you don't wear Perry Ellis clothes, which are for people with 32-inch waists and narrower hips than they have waistlines, that's the way it is at most stadiums. That if you don't have that kind of body build, you can't be comfortable in the seats. At Auburn, they remember that some of us aren't exactly the same shape we were in when we left high school. I was 155 pounds, 6'2" and 155 pounds when I graduated high school. Let's just put it this way: I ain't 6'2" anymore, and I ain't 155 either.
Well, Franz, at 155 pounds, you could have played offensive line in 1960, right?
Well, what's funny is Charlie Pell was the football coach here, and Charlie Pell was an all SEC offensive guard.
Yeah.
5'8.5" and 163 pounds, and he played nose tackle on the other side of the football. And people say he was mean as a snake and used to beat people up.
Rob, I'm going to get away. Y'all have a great one, buddy.
All right, Doug, thank you so much, man. We'll do it again later in the week. Doug Dean, AU Dose in Birmingham. I'll tell you, Franz, when we had Ward Pell, the widow of the late coach Charlie Pell, and I that was one of the best segments we ever had last spring. Charlie Pell, and again, he gets blamed for everything but the virus. You and Buddy Martin have talked about this in great detail about how Charlie Pell came to Florida and said, look, if you'll wear the orange and blue, wear your colors to the swamp, we want you. We don't, if you graduated from there, great. If not, so be it. That's okay. And you talked about, and Buddy, those great conversations with Ben Hill Griffin sitting on his front porch eating swamp cabbage, and 15, 20 minutes became hours. You weren't talking about X's and O's and football. You're just listening to the man, Ben Hill Griffin. He was a pretty cool guy, wasn't he?
Ben Hill was tremendous. And let me put it this way. If Bill Arnsparger had his way, Mike Archer would have been the coach when Galen Hall was fired. Now, understand this. Galen got fired for he gave Jarvis Williams, the late Jarvis Williams, he gave his mama $50 to keep him out of jail because they were coming to arrest him because he hadn't paid his child support. Galen gave him $50 out of his own pocket, and the next morning Jarvis's mother was there and she reimbursed Galen right there on the spot. Florida got probation for that. Bill Arnsparger turned Florida in. Why? Because Bill Arnsparger didn't like Galen, and he wanted a new head football coach, and he wanted it to be Mike Archer. Now, Ben Hill Griffin sat up there and listened to Bill Arnsparger spew out all about Mike Archer and everything like that, and finally, Ben Hill had enough of it, and he finally says, Bill, Steve Spurrier is going to be the football coach here next year. You do not have to be the athletic director. And with that, Steve Spurrier became the football coach here. And it was the smartest move that Florida could have made because Charlie did a great job of resurrecting our boosters. We have boosters and the program resurrected because of that. Stadium improvements, you name it. We went into a lull on the facilities, but that has been revived again. And now, I don't know if you have seen Florida's baseball stadium, for example.
Watched it Sunday.
What a palace! What a palace that is. I was up at that press box. It was kind of fun. Those woofing Miami guys kind of got shut up. They got shut up a bit by Caglione.
Yeah.
Oh.
But hey, let me ask you something, friends. When Miami won one of the games in the series, the guy rounded third, making the U. And then when Florida won the next night, the Gator players, he rounded third, broke the U over his knee. I mean, but that's rivalry baseball. And
Yes,
that's great. But God almighty, man, the stadium looks great. And they had everybody out there in Florida in shorts and T-shirts. I don't know what the temperature looked, probably 80 or above.
About 82 degrees.
Yeah. That's it. I mean,
Man,
that's what we love about this time of year.
They have a berm. They have a berm down the first and third base lines, and people love to just get out there, bring their blankets, and sit out there and soak up the sun, watch ball games from sitting on the berm. But of course, that berm also means that the stadium can be expanded. The stadium right now seats 7,000. It could be expanded to seat about 11,000 without any difficulty. And I can foresee a time when that will happen because Florida baseball is it's a really good product. They do a great job of marketing it. They got a stadium that is very, very fan accessible. By that, I mean easy to get to concessions, everything like that, big wide concourses. You don't have to stand in line at a trough to use the bathroom, which is a pretty good thing because I have been at the Swamp when when somebody walks in that let's just say could have possibly had one too many. I'm not
more than one occasion.
And then watch somebody stand, and they used to have nothing but a trough there, and people just stand up there, kind of mosey up there and everything. Oh gosh. But this is nice. This actually is a place where people can go and enjoy a ball game. And Florida's got a team that's people are really going to enjoy. My gosh, they can flat out hit the baseball.
Yeah. Well, SEC baseball, the brand, the interest is just growing every year. And I think a lot of it has to do with we know NIL is there, but it's not front and center in your face. It starts with the obnoxiousness of the football part where a lot of coaches, more and more coaches, folks, are getting in line with if the first thing the kid asks is, what are you going to give me? What kind of NIL deal you got? They kind of, let's move on to another one. That's where we're going. And I think about basketball. No, there's just not as many players, so it's not as bad. But college baseball, you've got, in theory, 35 players, 11.7 scholarships. So everybody gets a third of a scholarship. A few players, you might have to give them a full scholarship, but because guys are not going to the minors like they used to, they're attracted to the college model. Minimum 3 years, coaching, all the academics that you're in school. It's just a better deal. The product is better. We're going to talk about that with Franz Beard, GatorBetMedia.com, right after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Friends, the interest in college baseball, again, it keeps growing. Stadiums are being expanded. Florida's baseball stadium, over 7,000 seats. Like, you look out there at that berm in the outfield. Yeah, that's room for expansion. It's happening across the way. Mississippi State, over 12,000. LSU, at the box, same thing, over 12,000. Ole Miss, over 10. Ole Miss turned away more than 3,000 people that tried to buy season tickets this year. And they're putting another $40 million. It's Swayze Field in Oxford. That's $128 million they've put in to that baseball stadium. Of course, they're the defending national champions. The year before that, Mississippi State did it. I don't know if it's Southern Miss's turn this year or not, but Ole Miss.
They got a good ball club.
They do. But I love college baseball. I also want to talk about right now, you've got March Madness. And I love one of your columns in Gator Bait last year. Talked about the Big Ten has 14 basketball teams.
21 of them invited to the NCAA.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable. And think about where the Big Ten headquarters is. Chicago, 147 miles north of Indianapolis. There are a lot of Big Ten folks that work in the NCAA office. Maybe that's got something to do with it. Or all the Big Ten minders on national TV, on every network, who constantly have to interject the Big Ten narrative in everything. It's like, you go down in Louisiana, most everything that you eat has the Holy Trinity: peppers, onions, and celery.
Well, here's the thing that bothers me about the Big Ten is, when is the last time that a Big Ten team won the national championship in basketball?
Y2K 2000, Michigan State.
That's right.
The Flintstones.
And when was the last time before that?
1987, Indiana, Keith Smart, the jumper at the end in the Superdome.
Well, Michigan.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But Bobby Knight won 3.
Yeah.
Michigan won 1. Before that, you had Michigan State in 79. Before that, you had Ohio State.
Yeah.
In 1960.
Yeah.
The Big Ten has been overhyped and underperformed. Florida has won more national championships by itself in basketball, 2006 and 2007, than the entire Big Ten has in the last 22 years.
Yeah.
And the SEC is undervalued. I would put, personally, I would put, the Big 12 as the best basketball league, bar none. I would put the SEC actually probably number 2. It's better than the ACC this year. The ACC is terrible. You got maybe 3 really competitive teams in the ACC. That's about it. The Pac-12, you got UCLA, you got Arizona. Okay. You get past them, well, not so great, The Big Ten, everybody's going to hype Perdon't, and Perdon't ain't going to do it. And people are going to hype, Tom Izzo will get in because he's Tom Izzo, and he's won one. Has one coach been more overhyped than Tom Izzo, who won one national championship? And that's it.
He's been to 9. I got to give him credit, though. Tom Izzo has taken Michigan State to, I believe, 9 Final Four appearances. But you're right. The Big Ten, because adding Southern Cal and UCLA, they now can claim to have 70% of the nation's TVs live within the geographical footprint of what is now the Big Ten. That's what that's all about.
And guess what? Still nobody's going to watch them. That's the amazing thing. I talked to somebody very recently who said, yeah, look at all the TV sets in their geographic footprint. But meanwhile, you got people in New Jersey, and, they got a choice. They can watch Rutgers play UCLA in a football game, or they can watch Alabama and Tennessee. Which one are you going to watch? I mean, for all practical purposes, the Big Ten still only has 3 football programs. Maybe Southern Cal probably is going to make it 4. I'll give them credit for that. But you got Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan. That's it. There isn't a team in the Big Ten that can go through an SEC schedule with fewer than 3 losses. Period. Yeah. End of story. I mean, and I've been to the Horseshoe, and it is a great venue, and it's wonderful to watch them hi-oh, and then watch somebody go out there and dot the I. It's a tremendous pregame. It's absolutely fabulous. I love it when the band comes marching out and so forth like that. But guess what? Big play, everybody.
Yeah.
You go to Auburn University in a big play, and people are hugging and kissing everybody around them, and they don't care. Yeah. Hey, I kissed a guy. Well, who cares? We scored a touchdown, damn it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a different world.
It is a totally different world. You come to LSU, you come to Florida, and see if your ears are not still ringing on Friday when the game was last Saturday.
Yeah.
And you go up there, and it's a different animal up there. They pride themselves on being polite, but you know what? Polite doesn't get it.
Yeah.
This is a dog-eat-dog world, and if your dog ain't eating somebody, then you're just another school. The Big Ten, 2 national championships in the 2000s. One, let's see, which was Michigan in a split championship in 97.
Yeah.
And before that, I think you got to go all the way back to Ohio State and Woody
1970.
Hayes. Yeah. So it's a different world. Now they're adding Southern Cal, and they think that's going to change everything. No, it isn't. The only thing it's going to change by Southern Cal and UCLA joining is the Big Ten's going to expand to 20 teams, and then they're going to be able to call themselves the Big Ten because you're going to have 2 10-team divisions.
Yeah.
You're going to have the Big Ten West, and you're going to have the Big Ten East, and, you got 10 games. You're going to play 9 and 10 teams. So you play 9, you're going to play 1 from the other school. So guess what?
Other division. Yeah.
Yeah. People are saying, wow, isn't it going to be great? We're going to see Ohio State and Southern Cal. When they expand, you're going to see them once every 9 years, unless you play in the championship game. They're not going to attract viewers like that. The way the SEC set up was 16 teams, and you're going to play everybody is going to play home and home at least once every 4 years. That's what's going to get the viewers, period.
It is, but the Big Ten it'd be suicidal if they were to make that an Ohio State Southern Cal matchup once every 9 or 10 years, or Michigan Southern Cal. They can't do that of sound mind. But look,
Who said they're of sound mind?
But exactly, because Kevin Warren's their commissioner, and Kevin Warren and Larry Scott were just cowards 3 years ago during the summer leading into the virus. We're not going to play football. We're scared. We're not going to do anything. Well, you know what? It took an act of Congress, which, that doesn't mean anything. But Ohio State, against the rules of their league, was airlifted across the finish line to get into the college football playoff in the 2020 season. And Alabama curb stomped them. They beat the hell out of them. I'm telling you that the Big Ten, it's all, they say, well, it's all about TV sets. Well, I really wonder how many people in Southern California, because they're not going to the football games out there. You saw some of those crowds. I mean, UCLA had a pretty good team this past year. I think they won 9 games. They just gave Chip Kelly a big contract extension. And when Rick Neuheisel's on here, I love to ask him, because I got a ton of respect for him. He played at UCLA. You had Terry Donahue, had a 20-year run out there. I think about this. They've got a cool brand, but their athletic department, I'm told, has $100 million of debt. And I don't know, again, if that's bond debt, because if they may have done something and did $100 million bond issue. I don't know that. I do know a lot about bonds, and people are buying debt because they get tax-free income twice a year. I don't know. That figure is thrown around, but the facilities at UCLA need to be upgraded. No. They certainly don't lack for alumni that have money. I don't think they're asking for it. Southern Cal, well, it's a private university. USC, people jokingly call it the University of Spoiled Children, but it's over 30,000 students. I don't know how much interest people out there are going to have in following all these teams in Wisconsin and Minnesota and Indiana. I don't know. I just, Kevin Warren took the Pac-10, Pac-12 by surprise. It's going to happen now. What makes the SEC so special, friends, is the geographical footprint. It's contiguous. All states are connected. And I want to talk about Oklahoma. Oklahoma's coming into the SEC. And a lot of people, the numbers on Oklahoma are impressive. 51 conference championships. I don't care, Big 8, Big 12, whatever. That's impressive. 7 Heisman Trophy winners, 7 national championships. It's a great brand. They've got money. They've got fans. They're good in every sport, men's and women's. Okay. Franz, I don't think the learning curve is going to be that long. I know a lot of Oklahoma fans, and what they're all saying is this is going to allow Oklahoma to be able to recruit the kind of players, especially along the defensive line, that we can't get in the Big 12, because it's known as a passing league. But I tell you what, Big 12 is playing some pretty good football. Now, TCU got stomped by Georgia, but I still think it's a pretty good football. I think they're going to take Arizona State and Arizona, maybe Utah. They could take
Colorado, Colorado, Arizona State, because
Big 12, Pac-12 is going to just disappear.
Well, it is, and this is one of the reasons that it's sad that the Pac-12 is going to disappear, because you're not going to have a truly West Coast conference for football, because you're going to wind up with 6 West Coast teams in the Big 10. You're going to wind up with 4 essentially Pac-12 teams in the Big 12. And the Big 12, give Yormack a great deal of credit, because what did he do? He went out there and got preempted the Big 12, the Pac 12, and got a deal. Now, is it a great deal? People say, well, they're going to make $50 million a year. Well, guess how much the Pac 12 is going to distribute this year? About $31 million. That's it. And look at what's going on with the ACC. Florida State sitting there saying, holy cow, we need 15% of the revenue because we're that valuable. No, you're not. And they're not going to get it. And they're some idiot at Florida State said, well, we'll secede. It's $120 million exit fee if they secede. And they say, well, we'll get 30 million times 4 years and we'll make that up. They're assuming that the SEC wants them. And guess what? The SEC doesn't. We don't want Miami. Why? Why do we need Miami and Florida State? Florida's already got the state of Florida wrapped up. And so does Georgia. And so does people forget that west of Tallahassee, the state of Florida is known as Lower Alabama. Yep. And you go from Tallahassee to Jacksonville and people think of that as South Georgia. Nobody pays it. Trust me, Florida State and Miami are not going to be in the SEC, and the SEC gains nothing by bringing them in. The SEC brings there's nothing that can convince the SEC to expand beyond 16 teams unless Notre Dame decided to join the SEC. If Notre Dame decided, the SEC would expand and take them. Otherwise, there's no reason to.
Friends, along those lines, I've said this, we talked about it a lot last summer. If Notre Dame were to come into the SEC, it makes sense because Indiana is connected to Kentucky. That area up there, they call it Kentuckiana. Now, Florida State to the SEC, they had their chance back in 91, 92. A lot of people went to bat for Florida State. Bobby Bowden didn't want to do it. Clemson to the SEC. Well, you got South Carolina in there now. So if you bring in Clemson to the SEC and Florida State, you try to argue them. Not that they're not great brands, because they are. But that's like bringing sand to the beach. You've already got those markets. And if anything, the SEC goes after Virginia Tech, and North Carolina.
Not going to happen, though.
But I'm saying to get those TV sets, though, in Virginia and North Carolina.
But we've got the TV sets. We don't need to do that because
I'm just saying if they wanted to, that'd be the only reason they would do it.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing that people don't realize. We do not need that. We will get the TV sets. You don't have to have the TV sets in your geographic area to get people to watch your brand, because all you got to do is look at the fact that look at how many quarterbacks, are from California. And where do they come want to play football? In Florida and Georgia and Tennessee, etc.
Hold those thoughts, man. Hold those thoughts, because I agree. I'm just saying if they did, it would only be, but again, there's lots of viewers all over because of the package we have now. Right back in a moment. All right, Franz, during the break, my wife Audrey was reminding me, she said, look, you and Franz are talking about TV sets in those areas, but that doesn't mean they're fans. And I said, well, I already alluded to that in my earlier comments because, there are a lot of TV sets in those places. What does that mean? Here's another thing to keep in mind. I think I'm not going to be surprised if Apple or Fox, one of them, don't make a bid on ESPN, because it's going to be interesting to see how ESPN handles the SEC, because ESPN and Disney, A lot of things. There's a lot of working parts here on this one. Okay. They better be careful about trying to impose any kind of agenda. The Southeastern Conference TV market, and it's a national brand, but be very careful. CBS has knows what they've got in the SEC. They got it for $55 million. Disney's supposedly going to pay the SEC more than $300 million a year.
And that's right. That's prior. That deal was made prior to Texas
or Oklahoma, Texas. I know
that contract will be.
So, but here's the thing. And it will be. And I now I go to this point, Franz, because you're one of the people that are cerebrally capable of talking about this. The grant of rights deal with the ACC and ESPN goes through 2036. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if I'm the only person that thinks this way, but it seems to be the only contract that cannot be renegotiated. And it is hurting the ACC because they're getting way less money than the SEC. The Big Ten, I think, is getting more than anybody. But why can't the ACC contract be amended in any way? I don't understand. And as of this moment, no one's given me a thorough explanation. Why?
I'll give you one. They don't play good enough football in the ACC to merit a renegotiation. If you had, it's been Clemson and the Little 13 for a long time. Florida State was good from, Jimbo had things going at FSU, but then Jimbo kind of fell off the train. It kind of it's kind of like people in fashion. They're on the fashion train, and one day they get tossed off on their head, and the next thing you know, they're wearing plaids and polka dots and stripes all together. And white socks, of course. With their black loafers
and Pabst Blue Ribbon beer.
Of course, but it comes down to one basic thing. The ACC wants a renegotiated contract, fine. Then get your football up to the same level that you have in the Southeastern Conference, where you've got teams that can beat somebody, where you've got teams that, okay, so I'm sitting there and I'm Joe Schmo from Kokomo. I'm up in Indiana. And of course, the Big Ten football bores me. So I'm looking up there and I got a choice. I can watch Syracuse and Boston College in a football game. Oh boy. Or I can watch Mississippi State and Auburn. Who am I going to pick? Well, I'm not going to watch Syracuse and Boston College. Mississippi State and Auburn, they're in the SEC. They play a pretty good brand of football. Yeah. When the Big Ten gets more teams, and this is the thing that people don't understand. They say, oh, look at this deal they got. This deal is going to suck. And the reason it's going to suck is because if Southern Cal is really good, okay, so the Big Ten plus 12 will be a 16-team league for now. It's, somebody, I don't know who does their math in the Big Ten, but it's wrong, sounds like Jethro Bodine. You take naught from naught and naught and carry the naught, etc. like that. Yep. But people are not going to watch bad football.
No, they're not.
And that's why the ACC can't get a renegotiated contract. So
Franz
won't watch bad football, and that's what it is.
Yeah, didn't mean to interrupt you. I just want to say I picked up on that early on. It's not that the contract can't be renegotiated. It's that ESPN's like going, we're not going to even entertain that thought until you get your football better, good football. But
when people want, people want, Wake Forest Gump, 32,000 seats, and they don't fill it up. Got Duke over there, 40,000 seats, and they don't fill it up. On and on and on. Boston College, 44,000 seats, and no, it doesn't fill it up. And everybody there says, why would I pay the money there? I'll go see the Patriots play. Sure, that's the team.
Yeah. Yeah. See that they went in, the ACC made that mistake of going into a big TV market like Boston, thinking they would pick up all these fans, but they've got the Red Sox, the Patriots, the Bruins, the Celtics. It ain't going to happen, folks. I mean, I see it on a smaller scale in Memphis. You know, the smaller schools like a Christian Brothers University or Rhodes, they're not going to get the same attention that University of Memphis does. And of course, Rhodes is Division III. That's different. But they're not going to get what the Grizzlies are going to get a lot of attention too. They're an NBA team. But I'll tell you what, your description there, it's what I've been saying. ACC does play some good football, but you've got to have top to bottom. I mean, look at the SEC. Vanderbilt last year at 5-7 closed out with wins over Kentucky and Florida. You think the teams or team at the bottom of the Big Ten could have beaten any of the decent teams in that conference? No, they're not going to. I think too, you've got a lot of people at places like Duke and Wake Forest that just aren't pro football. They're not. I mean, I'm like, let's build up our college football program. Wake Forest, Sam Hartman left. He's going to Notre Dame, isn't he?
Yes,
he's the all-time passing leader at Wake Forest. I'm surprised he left Wake Forest, but I think that all this talk about college football, the SEC and the Big 12, I think are going to. The ACC has Clemson, NC State with Dave Doran. They're going to be good. It could be better. Getting over that hump to 10 and 11 wins in a regular season, they got to do that. Virginia Tech, they've fallen off a cliff. They used to recruit tougher football players to Blacksburg. There was a certain type player that fit their program. They're not getting those players anymore. Clemson, Franz, they're not the same. They're not the same as they were just a few years ago. For whatever reason, they tried to cram DJ Uglialalea, a round ball into a square hole. He's not a great quarterback. It's not going to happen. But I see where you're going. The ACC needs to get together and say, look, we've got basketball. Typically, we don't this year. But we better get football right, or we're not going to get the money that y'all all want. Florida State can threaten to leave, or Clemson can threaten to leave. But Clemson, they've got IPTAY. They've got a lot of money. Florida State does not. Not that I know of. They're Franz, you're right. You call it L.A., Lower Alabama, Lower Georgia, South Georgia. The Florida State fans got screwed when they went to the ACC because their fan base, they're SEC fans.
Yes, they are.
And they've never embraced that ACC schedule. You got to stick to what works for you. But they had their chance. But you're right. Now, Greg Sankey and the SEC are probably saying, and I believe they are, why bring sand to the beach?
Well, here's the thing.
Why bring a date? Why bring a date to the Miss America pageant?
The SEC wanted, when the SEC expanded, the SEC wanted Florida State and Miami at that point in time, because Florida State and Miami were brand names and they were big time. And we're looking at Florida had yet to really get established. Spurrier had us on the way up, but Florida still wasn't a national championship type team. Now, and by the time 92 rolled around, Miami had already won, I think. Let's see, they won in 83. They won
87, 89, 91.
Yeah, they won 4 national championships. And for whatever reason, Miami thought the Big East would continue, which it didn't, and so forth. Their chance, when they could have made a difference, was back then. They don't move the needle anymore. And until they are capable of moving the needle, nobody's going to be interested in them, just like nobody is interested in the ACC. The ACC thought when they added Miami, boy, we got Miami and we got Florida State, and we're just going to dominate. Well, how many national championships has Miami won since it joined the ACC? Zero. You know, Florida State won one in 2013. They call it lightning in a bottle. But
They've won 3 though since they joined the ACC.
Yeah, they have. They would have won the same 3 if they'd been independent. They may have won more.
That's where I was going to say, but it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah, I mean, they were that much better. They joined the ACC, figuring, well, we got to play Miami every year. That's a tough game. And we got to play Florida. That's a tough game, and that's all our tough games. I mean, that's what how it worked out was, okay, you got these tough ball games. We don't have to play anymore. Miami admits it. You know, you talk to Miami fans and they will tell you, look, we had our chance and we were the dominant program back in that day. Well, that day has come and that day has gone. And now what have we got? We have this thing called the ACC that really and truly doesn't matter. It's the almost competitive conference, ACC. You know, they have issues, and that exit fee, $120 million. Well, you know, Florida State is not going to get invited to the SEC. As I've said it, and I wrote about it today. Greg Sankey has a 16-team league in which everybody's going to play everybody home and home every 4 years at the bare minimum. And guess what's going to happen with that? The brand is going to increase because you're going to see these cross-conference games that you want to see. You're going to see Oklahoma and Texas coming to Florida Field. You're going to see Oklahoma and Texas coming to Auburn, etc. It's going to create a dynamic that it doesn't matter if all these TV sets they have in Los Angeles County. And understand this, you know, you talked about something a little earlier, and I'll give you a thought here. The Rose Bowl seats 100,000 people. UCLA is in a metro area with 12 million people. If you just took Los Angeles County and the metro Los Angeles area, you would have the entire state of Georgia, which is about, I think, 11 and change. What do they do though? They can't They can't get 35,000 people to come sit in a 100,000 seat stadium. Go figure.
Yeah, I just think about this. You know, Florida State was in the ACC. They joined in 92, 93. Wasn't it 90? It was 93, 92. Yeah. So it was 92, 93, 94. It was November 2nd of 95 on a Thursday night in Charlottesville. 4 years in, almost 4 full seasons, Virginia was the first ACC team to beat Florida State in the last play or two of the game. And that tells you right there that Florida State, yeah, you're right. They would have won regardless. I think that Florida State is paying the price. They're paying the price for not joining when they were invited, and now it's too late. You know, in Miami, Franz, you and I both know that's a strange program. They've got Daddy Warbucks down there. Ruiz going to give everybody NIL. It doesn't matter. They still aren't any good. I mean, really, but I'll tell you, Mario Cristobal, I believe in him as a recruiter and as a coach. I don't, Miami's never going to get back what they had before. What are you looking at?
No, they're not.
And I can't, I'm not seeing it, but let me say this real quick, folks. We're here with you 6 days a week, 50 hours of content a month. Hit that orange Patreon button on the sidelines.live website. Join IPTAM. I pay $10 a month. It's easy. click on there, comes right out of your bank account once a month. Help this show grow, keep the lights on as we travel and bring out at least 50 hours a month of great content. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Go out and help people with the expectation of getting nothing in return. Give to give. Don't just give to get. America is the greatest nation in the world because of its people, not the government. Don't ever forget that. And do yourself a favor. Go out and read every day. Tell people you love them and hug them and make a positive difference. Franz, real quick before you go. We got less than about a minute. Why would the SEC want to expand past these 16 other than some obvious reasons? Quickly.
They don't want to expand. Greg Sankey's content with it. He has the perfect scheduling model. You're going to play, every team's going to play every team. And this is what I was saying. You want the TV set in Kokomo. You want this TV set in Hastings, Nebraska. You want the TV set in San Bernardino, California. How are you going to get it? You're going to get it by having these games where you know that Oklahoma is going to play Alabama. You know Texas is going to play Alabama. You know Oklahoma's coming to Florida. You know Auburn's going to Texas, etc., like that. That's what's going to get the TV sets turned on to the SEC, not just because they're in California.
Exactly. Just because you got the TV sets, that doesn't mean anything. You can always go into those markets and poach, and that's what the SEC does. Put the best product on the table, they will come. Great show, everybody. Franz Beard, GatorBaitMedia.com, and everybody, we're out of here. Have a great one. We'll see you tomorrow.